Hey everyone, jump into another video here. This time we'll look at the Mosin Nagant and about the 1,000 ways you can modify the barrel of this thing. Straight up, the Mosin's probably one of the most simple guns in the game. You can throw it in, you can put ammo in it and go right to town, and it's just about as effective as anything else in the game with killing even geared players. But for those of us that like to edit guns and get the maximum amount of effectiveness out of them we can, I figured I'd throw a video together and show all the attachments and how they kind of all run. The most cost-effective immediate Mosin you can build and still get some decent stats out of is this guy right here. All of this stuff here runs right around 65 to 75,000 on the fleet market. You can get it cheaper if you have stuff unlocked, but that's the cost. 65, 70 gets you this build. Push it to 100 if you throw the Brommet suppressor on there. And that right there is your most cost-effective build for the Mosin. You have a couple of these options up here as far as your different attachments you can put on directly to the barrel without a thread attachment. But that's it. That's your most cost effective. Now, in my take, the most effective setup you can build with the Mosin is in two aspects. You can either go for highest accuracy or lowest recoil. Ergonomics is more important to that. You should always maximize ergonomics because that affects directly how long you can stay down behind sights. So for maximum accuracy, and this isn't all that big of a deal, this tanker one is the one you want to go with. But you can see how small of a difference this is here. It almost has no effect. So the trade-off then is to go with the wit, which gives you the best recoil reduction. So you can see right here how big of an effect that is on accuracy. Now, if you want to go suppressed, the DTKP suppressor is by far the most effective when it comes to ergonomics and recoil. This is what I run when I'm going full bore with a Mosin. Now, you can actually run with these two in raid. If you're looking for a little bit more bang, you can keep this on, and if you want to suppress shot, you keep this in your Kappa or your secure container, and real quickly, you go from your 57 and 166 recoil up to 139, but now you're suppressed, and your ergonomics are still not hit too bad. So one of the first things that you can put on any standard Mosin, whether it's the Mosin bolt-action sniper rifle with the carbine stock or the regular Mosin stock, are the recoil pad and the pistol grip. So these two things here, real quick and simple, pretty easy to buy, give you a little bit of recoil reduction and balance the ergonomics out. You even get +1 with these two together. So a little bit of less recoil when you pull the trigger, how much that gun jumps. So that out the gate you can apply to them. Some of the other stuff you can do is you can actually go put this Monte Carlo stock on. Now the difference between the Monte Carlo stock and we'll say the full-blown stock without any of the attachments on it is quite a bit. You can see the ergonomics is huge, another 6% in recoil reduction. Now, this helps balance it out just a little bit. Technically, when you put this on here, the stats don't show up here, but this puts it at a recoil reduction of 42% versus the 40%. And you can't attach anything to the Monte Carlo stock. It is what it is. And then lastly, you have the Archangel stock, most expensive of the gang, but it actually increases accuracy and has huge recoil reduction on top of the ergonomics. Of all of these, this is kind of the order of best to worst, right? Now, technically, this one is a little bit higher when you look at the recoil of the two. So you're 159, 162, 488, 468. So you're technically a little bit better here, but look at your difference in weight. So you're almost a full kilogram lighter in the weight of carrying. So that's the advantage of this Monte Carlo stock. This is how I order them from best to worst. I put this in here just kind of to meme it. I don't know anybody that would ever run this because the stats on it are just horrible and you don't really gain anything but a little bit of weight under this one. 0.4 kilograms. So with all that being said, we'll get right into sights. And I'm not going to show you every sight with the Patriot just because it's literally every sight. At this point, you can attach almost everything to this with the exception of issues with field of view. But if you look at the difference between these two, they essentially end up being the same. So your ergonomics takes a -1 hit, your sight is -5, and the Valde, which is the sight I prefer, is a -5. They are basically equal in how they attach. The only difference then is you get into weight. This one's obviously quite a bit more heavy. and then what your sight picture ends up being on these two different sights for that. So pretty straightforward. You know, you can do everything from thermals to big scopes, all sorts of stuff can attach to this Patriot. So moving on to the direct attachments. These are your direct attachments that can attach directly to the gun. You don't have to have any kind of special barrel attachment form or anything like that. All the way to the Bramit suppressor. Allows you to directly attach to all of these. And we'll look at their effects. I have them ordered in what I think is best to worst. So the Whip Machine muzzle brake out the gate has a 28% recoil. That's huge. It's one of the largest ones there are out there. But it hits your accuracy, gives you just a touch of muzzle velocity. The Tackfire Tanker style, not quite as much muzzle brake, but it gives you more accuracy, 2%. So it's a 3% swing from this guy. So if you're looking for recoil or accuracy, that's kind of where you get. And then the TPP muzzle brake is kind of in the middle of these two. So it has a higher recoil and a higher accuracy, but it hits your ergonomics and it adds just a little bit of muzzle velocity. At the end of the day, it really depends on what you're looking for. You can add a little bit of accuracy and a lot of recoil reduction at the cost of some ergonomics, or you can add accuracy, moderate recoil between the group of them. And then lastly, the suppressor. The really advantage of this is how simple it is to go on and off. You can take it on and off and put it in your bag if you want, if you're worried about losing it. It's also one of the cheaper suppressors to run because you don't need an attachment, and its cost runs, we'll see what it's running right now, but usually about $30,000. So yeah, we're just shy of 30 on these. But its stats are pretty bad, but it's good for getting you the requirements of some of those quests that have suppressors, and it's better than no suppressor at all. So we'll start at the top here with these, and I have these ordered kind of based on how they attach, right? So this Tiger Rock Mosin adapter, you can, once you put this on, you can put that on, but you can also put this guy on as well. So this is another adapter. Now, interestingly enough, this muzzle brake can go on with or without this. So not sure. I've never really used any of these. You need it to get this BMD, which is a 4 and a +4 muzzle velocity. Kind of a weird adapter. Not really sure what it does. Whereas this one's a 12 recoil, 1 ergonomics, 1 muzzle velocity. I don't like any of these. I don't use them. They don't really get you much of anything. You know, one advantage a lot of these do have is they do add 1% recoil just with the attachment itself, but that's it. So the next one is this custom Mosin rifle thread adapter. Now, this is where you get your biggest bunch of thread adaptions to it. So all of these can play into how you want to do it, down to the simpler, just cheapy, nothing to them kind of threads. This one obviously has the biggest hit to recoil. It's not as big as some of the direct threads, but it gives you a little bit more muzzle velocity. It also gives you the option of attaching these 3 suppressors. With all their varying stats and everything and costs, I'll leave it to you to how you want to pick them, because that's what it boils down to, is personal preference. The WT, this is kind of an interesting attachment, because at the end of the day, this attachment and then the Mosin custom thread with the TK end up being the same thing. So everything that attaches to here can attach to here. So theoretically, by having this attachment on, you could be running one of these compensators and then have this TK for these 2 suppressors here, which are a little bit better suppressors. They're obviously more expensive, but their ergonomics hits a lot less. They have a bit better thing on recoil and a little bit less reduction in accuracy than the others. They're your most expensive, but technically you could run, if you didn't want to run one of these other compensators, which aren't as good in general across the board, so you could pick this thread adapter, and we'll say this guy here, and that's what you're going to have on the gun, just like that. And then in your bag, you can have this. Actually, we're going to go with the DKMTP. So you could have this and pull off your compensator and then put your suppressor on. And then you can switch back and forth if you're worried about losing your suppressor. You know, you can keep it in your Gamma or Kappa or whatever you're running. That's really the big advantage you have with those. A lot of options, a lot of ways to go about it. At the end of the day, the Mosin works good without anything else. The my preferred setup for what I want to run is, if I'm looking for budget builds, just because the additional versatility that scope gives you, it's worth the cost to me. But you can just as easily run this thing like this, and it gets you everything you need. Now, if I want to carry in a cool gun and I'm doing try hard, or, you know, I want to put thermals on it, at the end of the day, if I'm going thermals, I'm going all out with this thing. And to me, ergonomics is more important than recoil reduction, as well as accuracy, because you end up with being able to sit behind the gun longer without having to come back off of it and miss what you're looking at. This setup, when I'm going big, is generally what I run. Is this guy right here. And here's your final stats. 23 ergonomics, which is pretty good for a Mosin, actually, because if you look at this guy with everything that's on it, it's 2. And then if you throw a scope on it, it's 0. I mean, you can't go negative ergonomics, but you get pretty close with some of these things. The suppressor hits it a little bit more. You're down, but now you're suppressed. Your recoil's pretty good. Accuracy's good. So it really ends up on, at the end of the day, like everything else, what do you want to run with your Mosin? Here's all the attachments. Here's how they all go together. Here's how it all strings. So I figured it could be some help to some folks, because it can be confusing when you get into the link searches and it ends up being a circular attachment sometimes because of the double adapters, the middlemen you have to put in to get some of these other attachments going. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. If it was, please hit like down below, subscribe. I'll hit up as many of these kind of videos as I can, you know, do some for the M4 or the AKs and stuff like that. Hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for watching the video.